Hey everyone, welcome to 996 The Howl for the uninitiated. This is an unedited YouTube vlog discussing everything Arizona Coyotes, and it looks like this, you can see it here, this logo might be phasing out. They just released the NHL draft hats. You know, it's always a big thing every new draft year at the NHL draft, entry-level draft. They release new hats. If you're a collector, I'm sure that's a great time for you, but the Coyotes draft hat was showing the Kachina logo with the Kachina stripes, and also a lot of logos around Gila River Arena nowadays are showing the old Kachina logo. So maybe the rebrand is imminent. Maybe as soon as the draft, they'll officially announce it. But for now, we gotta get to another draft, which is the expansion draft, which involves Seattle coming into the league, which moves the Coyotes to the Central Division. But this may be the toughest video I've had to make. I still, to this moment, I'm trying to wrap my head around all the rules, and it's so complicated, especially for the Coyotes, who have a tremendous amount of free agents. This is it's going to be one of their biggest summers in terms of roster turnover that we've seen probably since 2017. When John Shaka got Rick Tocchet, Ronta, Stepan, Jalmerson, drafted Keller and Chikrin. It's going to be one of those summers. Pretty weird how nothing has really happened yet. They got their new coach, but roster moves, nothing this offseason except for signing Ilya Lyubushkin, which we'll get into. So we'll just jump right into it. You have two scenarios. You have to protect one goalie. In one scenario, you can protect 7 forwards and 3 defensemen, or the other scenario, the goalie plus 8 skaters, but that 8 skater rule has to have a minimum of 4 defensemen, so you can't just protect 1 defenseman and 7 forwards to get that 8, or protect 2 defensemen and protect 6 forwards to get that 8. It's like one or the other. Either you protect 4 D-men, which will turn into protecting 8 skaters, or you protect 3 D-men, which will translate to protecting 7 forwards. So I obviously went for the 7 forwards because the Coyotes have no defenseman to expose. No defenseman meets the exposure requirement, and you need to have at least one defenseman exposed that is signed for next season. And as you can see here, all their defensemen are in the free agent section. So obviously, you have to protect Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Phil Kessel because they have no movement clauses. So automatically, they're protected unless you ask them to waive, which that deadline is coming up very soon. But I don't expect Kessel or Ekman-Larsson to waive their no movement clause to move to Seattle. So obviously you have to protect Chikrin, who's your best defenseman, future captain. So they have no other exposure requirements on their defense except for Lyubushkin. So that's why he's in the red. The red means you're exposed. Green, you're protected. Blue, you're an unrestricted free agent. And black, you're exempt. So you have to protect OEL and Chikrin. That leaves one more defenseman you have to protect. I was struggling between protecting Jordan Gross or Kyle Capobianco. I like Gross more. He had a way better season last season than Capobianco. But, both had their mistakes in the few games they played. But Capobianco's 23 years old. Gross is 26. So, Capobianco has a higher ceiling, maybe with the new coach, a more younger-oriented coach who's involved in young player development. Maybe Capobianco has a great season and makes the roster, but it's pretty much a throwaway protection because you can't protect Lyubushkin. If you protect Lyubushkin, there's no other defenseman to expose, and you don't meet the requirement. So they signed Lyubushkin, shortly after they got eliminated from playoff contention, maybe the first couple weeks of the offseason for the Coyotes. So he's signed for next season and is the only defenseman who meets the exposure requirements. If they lose Lyubushkin, that's fine, only because the biggest exposure player that the Coyotes could lose is Adin Hill, and they need to try and do anything they can to try to divert Seattle's eyes away from Adin Hill and try to get someone else. Maybe if you want a big bottom pairing defenseman, you pick Lyubushkin, but obviously Adin Hill is the biggest player the Coyotes could potentially lose. You only can protect one goalie. Antti Ranta is an unrestricted free agent, so he doesn't. You could still protect your free agents, but it doesn't really make sense because Seattle could only talk to the free agents 3 days before the expansion draft, and they're not going to talk to every single free agent in the entire league in 3 days. It's very rare in these expansion drafts, the expansion team will pick a UFA from your team. They will grab a roster player. So, but if they do end up selecting a free agent, any one of these free agents, if Seattle picks up on the day of their expansion draft, that counts as a player for the Coyotes, so they don't even need to worry about any of these guys. But honestly, there's not too many high-ticket free agents on this list other than Bunting and maybe Goligoski. Goligoski did sell his Arizona home in the summer. Maybe that's a sign that he's moving on. Maybe if Seattle talks to Goligoski, they want a veteran defenseman who's won a cup before with Pittsburgh, a really long time ago. Maybe they talk to Goligoski, get a good veteran bottom six. Goligoski in your bottom six, it's pretty good. Bottom six, bottom pairing defenseman, you're doing pretty good. So maybe they could go after Goligoski, but back to the goalie situation. Yeah, you have to decide between Kemper or Hill. I chose Kemper. If they lose Kemper for nothing, that doesn't really make sense to me. If you lose Hill, what are you going to do? You can't really be blamed for it. We really don't even know his ceiling. Right now, he's entering his first NHL backup season. And there's so many other goalies on the market that Seattle could pick up. I'm assuming they'll get Holtby, maybe Jake Allen. There's Frederik Andersen, who's still great, who's a free agent. A lot of teams have goalie tandems that they have to decide who to protect. The Vegas, they could lose Marc-Andre Fleury. So I think if you're Seattle, it's odd to take a chance on such an unproven goalie, whereas there's so many other proven goalies on the market. But then again, Seattle could load up on defensemen and goalies and then trade them to other teams. So, maybe Adin Hill could fetch them another draft pick, or who knows. But I think it's wise to protect Kemper and not try to maneuver around this expansion draft, because you can get lost in the sauce so easily trying to play 4D, 5D chess. And like we saw in the Vegas expansion draft, some teams got burned hard. Whereas last expansion draft with Vegas, the Coyotes lost Teemu Pulkkinen, who didn't even play one NHL game for Vegas and is not even playing hockey on American soil anymore. So the Coyotes got out of that draft pretty clean, probably the best out of any team in the league. So hopefully they get that luck again with Seattle. We'll go to the forwards. I think a lot of variation. If you look at Coyote protection list, probably the variation would be on the forward side. Obviously, Kessel needs to be protected. And then obviously Dvorak and Schmaltz need to be protected. And then I have Keller there. Some people are saying, you might expose Keller because he's not living up to his contract. It's a huge contract. The Coyotes don't want to pay it, especially in this flat cap era we're just entering. He's getting paid too much. But honestly, Keller's such a young player still. He's very young. He has still so much potential. He's one of our best scoring young wingers with speed, who has a lot of skill. And under a new coach, maybe he could go back to that rookie form where he scored almost 70 points. I'm not going to give up on Keller yet. I think exposing him would be a mistake. And if you expose Keller, your really only choice is to protect Bunting. You're not going to expose Keller to protect Christian Fischer or Johan Larsson. At least I don't think you should. And just like their defense situation, they really have no forwards to expose. other than Fisher, Larson, and then Kraus, Pitlick, Schmaltz, Dvorak, and Keller are exposable, but you got to protect Keller, Dvorak, and Schmaltz, or at least Dvorak and Schmaltz. Like, after these forwards, the rest of their forwards are, Brassard's a UFA, Dryden Hunt's a UFA, John Hayden's a UFA, Pedersen's a restricted free agent, and actually Hunt and Hayden might be restricted free agents. Actually, I just did a video, they are. And then Bunting is a UFA. Bunting's a bit of a question mark with him because he's already been reported that he's going to shop and test the free agent market. He had a great end of the season. He scored about 10 goals in 26 games. He won gold for Team Canada in the World Championship, even though he didn't really do much. I don't even think he recorded a point in that tournament. But, we're all on that Bunting hype train. It's more like a recency fallacy the fans are experiencing. But I chose to protect Pitlick and Kraus. Some other people might protect Kraus and Bunting. But I don't think Seattle is going to sign Bunting in 3 days. He's an unproven NHLer. He only has 30 games of NHL experience. If you expose someone like Pitlick or Kraus, I think Seattle will be more inclined to pick up one of them, a third, fourth line, big body winger who plays with grit, power forward type players. But I really like Pitlick. I'm not ready to lose him. I actually like him more than Kraus. I felt like Kraus dropped the ball hard last season. Same with Christian Fischer, which is why I don't have Fischer protected. I think Pitlick's a better Kraus. I know Kraus is a household name, a fan favorite. He had a really down year last season. I mean, I really hope Kraus has a way better season next season. And I hope he stays with the team, which is why I protected him. But I'm ready to move on with Fischer. Maybe Seattle looks at Fischer as a bottom fourth line guy. A younger guy, plays on an edge, is physical. That could be viable for Seattle. Or even Johan Larsson, a fourth line center. I mean, that's a great pickup for Seattle. A veteran, experienced NHLer, good on the face-offs. Had a pretty good season with the Coyotes. Maybe exposing Larsson would make Seattle gravitate towards Johan Larsson as opposed to Aiden Hill. But honestly, everyone's going to have different lists with these forwards. Garland needs to be protected, but he also doesn't because he's a restricted free agent, so the Coyotes still hold his rights. So I don't think Seattle could come and talk to him in 3 days and forcefully pick him from the Coyotes, because he's not even exposure eligible. He's not signed for next season. So I'm pretty sure, even the Coyotes could not really expose Garland, but not have to protect him and still have an under the table deal with Garland saying, hey, we're not going to waste a protection slot on you and protect someone else. But honestly, other than Larsson and Fischer, there's only Bunting left, who's actually, somewhat a player that you should keep, but they could do that same under the table deal with Bunting, whereas he's a free agent. The Coyotes could be like, you can talk to teams, here's our offer after the expansion draft. If you sign it, we don't need to waste a protection slot on you. So there's a lot of under the table dealings that could go on. I'm pretty sure with Garland, Seattle can't take him either way because his rights are with the Coyotes, like I mentioned. So this is what I chose. I chose Pitlick and Kraus. I like Pitlick. Pitlick's even training with a lot of the core members on the Coyotes. If you follow the Coyotes' Instagram, they post a lot of their workout sessions, and Keller, Chychrun, Pitlick, Dvorak, Schmaltz, even Fischer, they're all working out together in Phoenix. So it seems like Pitlick's getting more comfortable with the core. I love his play last season. There's nothing I saw for him that would make me expose him over someone like Fischer or Larsson. But honestly, you could just get trapped in overthinking this a bit too much. What's good is that the exemption list involves some of our great young players like Barrett Hayden, Victor Soderstrom, Jan Zinik, and Ivan Prozhatov, who would be the next goalie after Aiden Hill to come up and fight for that backup position. But I think if the Coyotes do lose Adin Hill, it's in their best interest to grab an NHL backup goalie. There's going to be a lot of them on the market. You need to grab one. You can't have Prosvetov backing up Kemper, especially with his injury history as of recently. So it's a big free agent list the Coyotes have. None of these players meet exposure requirements, so they can't really protect either Larson or Fisher and then expose one of these guys. They don't meet the requirements. None of these players are signed to the Coyotes for next season. Like I said, I did a video on Peterson, Hayden, and Hunt. I'm pretty sure they're restricted free agents. And then all these other guys are unrestricted free agents. You see Gross there as an unrestricted free agent. Ranta, maybe if Seattle wants to talk to Ranta, see where he's at with his injuries. Like, Ranta's a really, really good goalie if he's healthy. So if I'm Seattle and I see that Hill is exposed, but the Coyotes also have Antti Ranta on their roster for a couple more days until free agency day starts, I would talk to Ranta. I'd be like, hey, what's your injury situation? Are you healthy? How are you feeling? And then sign him. You could even give him a lesser contract because obviously he didn't live up to his $5 million contract due to all his injuries, so there's some hesitation there. But I could see that happening. If I'm Seattle and I could have a healthy Ranta for free and I get to dictate the terms of the contract, I would pick Ranta over Hill. But obviously it's only 3 days. There's 31 teams in the NHL. There's so many free agents you have to talk to. So it would be rare that Seattle chooses one of these guys from the Coyotes. It's most likely going to be someone in red. And it's hard to divert Seattle's eyes from Adin Hill. I'm going to be honest. You maybe have to expose Keller if you want Adin Hill not to be taken. I think that's the only option. Maybe Schmaltz, but I feel like Schmaltz has a great trade value compared to Keller because of Keller's cap hit and contract. Schmaltz, it's cheaper, $5.8 million per year. It's more digestible. And a lot of teams have been talking about Schmaltz. I heard Buffalo a couple times. Even Dvorak, a lot of people are reporting, is on a trading block. So we'll see what happens. I think just to sum up this video and to sum up this draft, the biggest player the Coyotes can lose is Adin Hill. Other than if they don't lose Adin Hill, this expansion draft's a win for the Coyotes. They could just move on, and it won't really matter for the Coyotes if they lose Fisher or Larson or Labushkin, or they decide to go in the free agency pile. Maybe Bunting. But I don't, like I mentioned a lot of times, I don't see Seattle wasting their 3 days talking to an unproven NHLer who's only played 30 games in the NHL. So that's it for me. If you guys have different lists, if you guys disagree, I'm all for it. Listen in the comments. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.